So I've used this passage of scripture out of Joshua it's the first chapter of Joshua when I've been going to start things. Now, when this pandemic started, I just happened to get out my Bible and look up this particular chapter again in the book of Joshua, and I started to see some parallels or some things that I'd never ever seen before. Now, I want to share them with you tonight, but I want you to understand, firstly, this is not a thus saith the Lord, neither is it set in stone, and those of you who have a teaching flair or a gift of teaching will probably think I'm stretching the bow too far. However, I hope you find it encouraging, and I hope you dig into your own Bibles and have a bit of a look and see what you can discover out of it. But let me just start by saying, in the book of Joel, it says, "In the last days I will," and most of you would know that the rest of that passage is, "pour out my spirit on all flesh," etc. Now, I think that we can safely say that that hasn't occurred in totality yet, but we're expecting to see it before the end. Now, if we turn to the book of Exodus, we find that the children of Israel wandered around in the desert for 40 years. And then Joshua led them into what they termed as the promised land. Now, I see out of this that the wilderness experience, the desert, was a type of the church age and it coming to an end. Now, before that happens, the Spirit of God has to be poured out. And then Jesus comes back and the 1,000-year reign starts. But at the end of Exodus rather, and the first chapter of Joshua, Joshua takes over and God explains some stuff to Joshua, and these are some of the things that he says. God said that there was so much that Joshua had to do before they could go over and possess the land. Now, I don't know if you've ever gone through that particular chapter. There's only 18 verses in it, but the term you, yours, and your are stated 36 times in 18 verses. Now, that would indicate to anybody that God was expecting Joshua to do a lot, but he was also expecting the people to do a lot. He encouraged them to be strong and courageous. Excuse me. Now, right at the end of the chapter, the 18th verse, God tells Joshua, anyone who will not obey, well, we have to kill them off. Now, we don't kill people off these days, but I'm seeing that the sheep will be sorted from the goats. And when the Spirit is poured out, only the sheep will stand. The true church will be, as in human terms anyway, the purest it can be before his return. Now, that's the parallel that I see in the first chapter of Joshua. So how does that apply? Well, when this pandemic is over, the 19 thing, and I don't want to get into that, whether it's what it is or where it's come from or anything, I'm not here to talk about that. But when the pandemic's over, I really believe that the church will be dealing with so many people seeking answers. What is happening? What's going on? And then maybe the Spirit of God is poured out. Maybe this is a time when God is getting ready to do something really mighty. And the time is right. The time is ripe. Those who have been playing church, when all this happens, those that have been playing church will be swept into the corner on their own, and the divide will take place. Now, we know that the wheat grows up with the tares, but I believe that that divide will happen in a way that those who aren't of the true household of God will be able to be spotted quite easily. And the sheep are those that of the household of God. Now I just want to have a quick look at that first chapter, if I might, just to go through it a little bit. Now I know I've only got a few minutes, so I'll try and hurry through it. Now I mentioned that you, yours and your are mentioned 36 times in this first 18 verses of the book of Joshua. But there are also some other interesting aspects of this particular chapter. There's 17 positive things that God says to Joshua, and I want to just very quickly read them out to you and then present the opposite. Now the opposites aren't mentioned in this chapter, but the positives are, and they read as follows: readiness, unpreparedness, receive, robbed, victorious, defeated, strong, weak, God with us, separation, under command, no guidance, careful, careless, obey, disobey, single-mindedness, divided, successful, unsuccessful, know the word, ignorant, prosper, poverty, encouraged, discouraged, vision, aimless, scheduled, erratic, unpunctual, rest, stress, helping brothers, having concern for others, independence, submission, rebellion. Now it's hard to believe that all those things are mentioned in that first chapter, but they are. Now I believe that the negative side of each of those positives that God spoke about were the characteristics of those people that God was telling Joshua to kill if they wouldn't obey. Now if you look at the time frame between the 40 years that Joshua and Moses led the people in the desert, compared to the time when Joshua took over to when they first put their foot in the Jordan River, you will find that the time frames are vastly different. The time frame between Joshua taking over and going into the Jordan was only a short space of time. The time frame of the other side of it was 40 years. So these are my thoughts, and mine alone, not mine alone necessarily, but these are the things that God has been showing me out of this, that there will be a squishing up. There's not many squishing up of time. There's not a lot of time left. We've seen most of the prophecies in the Old Testament come to pass, but I really believe that the time is ripe now for the Spirit of God to fall. We need to be ready. We need to be the ones that are on the positive side, ready to receive, strong, under command, encouraged, be the ones who encourage, have the vision. Now in the second chapter of Joshua, it talks about Rahab. Now Rahab was the prostitute. Now what if, for instance, it's the prostitutes, the drug addicts, all the ones that we in the past maybe have thought are unworthy? What about if they're the ones that are going to carry the flag for the kingdom? So we need to be ready. We need to be ready to accept anyone and everyone based on being a human being and wanting to get to know the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and wanting to, and as people come, we need to be without judgment. Now that's what I've got out of this first book of Joshua. There are other things, but I haven't really got time to go into them. So I hope I've been able to at least provide you with some food for thought and some areas of discussion. So God bless, and hope to see you all soon.